Today's category is words that start with the letter L.
I thought we were talking about the internet.
Are you kidding me? I got a whole page full of...
Just things that start with L.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to start with lemons, and then I was going to, ease into linoleum.
Ooh.
And then I was going to talk about my cousin Larry. And then I was going to say, I got you. I don't have a cousin named Larry.
Everyone, that's such a cousin name, right? But I don't think anybody actually has a cousin named Larry. snoCast! Hello everyone, what is going on? Welcome to a brand new snoCast with a new looking format. As you can obviously tell, we've taken away the video for this one, hopefully in turn for a much better audio. This is kind of a test episode. We'll see how it looks and sounds, but we're going to try it out. But I'm with CJ. Welcome, CJ, from the channel What's With Games.
I'm CJ. I start every podcast like that. I'm so sorry.
Wait, what? What are you talking about?
I start every podcast by just awkwardly saying, I'm CJ.
This is CJ. Hey.
Hi, I'm CJ.
But anyway, we're gonna try it out and we'll see how it goes. Tell me what you think in the comments. Would you prefer the video? I don't know if people actually watch this while they listen or if they just listen. So this is kind of a test, and CJ is my guinea pig. So
yeah, I had no idea that I was kickstarting this new format. So
coming to Kickstarter.
I did not sign a liability waiver of any kind, so I can sue in theory.
I didn't think this through.
Oh, that's all right. We've already started, so you just gotta...
Dang it. Okay, we're just gonna start. You know what? We're doing it live. We're doing it live. Welcome, CJ from What's With Games. For our audience at home that doesn't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do on the YouTube scene.
Hey. Yeah, see. Okay, my name is CJ, and what I do is I take aspects of games, and I tell you just what's with them. That's literally all I wrote. Now and then, I'll do a little PSA type of video, some kind of public announcement, just as a joke video. Sometimes I'll make general videos where I expand or expound. Are those the same? I don't even... I talk about a topic that just interests me but doesn't fit the regular format of my show. And even every now and then I'll make a little comedy sketch, which probably my favorites are the comedy sketches. I only have one right now, but if you're watching this in the future, I might have 300. So go check me out. Link in description. I wear a hat.
Yeah, I was going to say, because we're doing the audio cast, you won't have to worry about people seeing you in a hat or not. So that's nice.
Well, I don't have to worry about it anyway, because as I've told you before, and as you know, I don't have a top of my head. There's just a hat.
It's just attached.
Sometimes I put a hat over my hat.
Sleep in it, shower with it.
Yeah, I mean, do you sleep in your hair?
I guess you have to, right? So.
Yeah. That's me.
Anyway, go check out What's With Games. Yes, it's on YouTube. We also both of us have a background in comedy sketches, which is something we both found out recently.
I mean, it depends on your definition of recently.
Or comedy sketches.
Depends on your definition of the English language.
But we both have done comedy sketches in the past, so that's just fun. I was going to say something, but I forgot what it was.
Oh, that's okay. We have 45 minutes to figure it out. That's the topic. We're going to try to excavate...
What was today's topic?
Excavate Snowman's mind.
I remember what I was going to say. It was that we did a video together recently as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's not releasing for 3 months, but by the time they listen to this, yeah, that'll have been out.
Yeah, we're recording this 4 months ahead of time.
My first episode hasn't even released yet. I'm not even a thing yet. I sure hope that I have exactly 611 subscribers at the time that I record this.
But we did a video on Mario Maker recently together, so you might already know who CJ is from last week. I mean, from forever in the future.
The guy with the really weird audio quality.
That's the other reason for the snoCast, is for CJ to test audio quality. Sorry, I'm getting super meta. We should just dive in.
All right, I'm ready.
The topic today, we're actually going to journey back, which is funny because we were just talking about being months in the past. But for today's topic, we are going to journey back even farther. we need to like prepare the audience. We're gonna go back to the 90s.
90s?
Yeah.
Do we know the same topic that we're having here?
I mean, I assume so, right?
What year did The Legend of Zelda come out?
96, I think.
87, dude.
80, not the original. I'm talking Ocarina.
Oh, I was talking the original when we first discussed this. I guess it's the same idea no matter what, though.
We're so candid. This is perfect. We're talking about the internet. We're talking about the rise of the internet.
But more specifically, because we could easily talk about multiplayer online and Mario Maker being a community type game and stuff like that. But what I wanted to focus on was how design itself has changed as a result of the immediacy of information.
Yeah. I know. And good luck putting that into a title, right? So I'll probably call it something like The Rise of Internet Affecting Games. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what I'm going to call it yet. But
well, they know.
You guys know, and that's probably wrong because I worded that weird. That's probably not what the title's going to be. But anyway, we're talking about the internet and how that has come into the world, the rise of it, and how it has affected how games have been made and designed.
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought that was a really cool topic idea. I have a lot of thoughts on that. This was kind of CJ's, he brought it up, and I thought that's a really good idea.
Well, it just kind of like occurred to me one day, and I talked about it with my friend, Simna Ibn Sindh, whom I actually joke about in one of my videos. But that's completely unrelated. We just kind of talked about it, and we talked for a very long time. Like, it kind of occurred to me that this is like a really profound topic once you know what we're talking about, which we haven't touched yet.
Right. Yeah, we've kind of introduced it, but not really elaborated on what it means.
Yeah. Also,
give us like a synopsis of what you're talking about.
Just like a short disclaimer. I'm sick, so if I cough or something, all right. Anyway, what I wrote here. I first thought about a game like The Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda, whichever variant you're talking about, I was considering the original, but it pretty much any of them before Majora's Mask, probably. This applies to those games. But think about the original when I'm saying this, I guess. And that's that those games are all considered masterpieces. And I'm not saying that they're not. I'm not saying that at all. But it is my belief that a game like that couldn't exist today. That game, if released today, would not gain any traction. It would not be accepted at all. And that's because of the internet. I'm going to explain why. Back in the day, with like The Legend of Zelda, the original, you know, there's a ton of stuff that seems extremely not intuitive. Like, oh, you go across the map and put a bomb on this one brick on the wall and it'll blow up, and then you'll get a thing that you need to beat the game. And if you were to make a game that required that right now and showed me that, I'd say that is horrible design. How does the player know they're supposed to do that? But in The Legend of Zelda, I mean, they got away with it, and that game is like universally praised. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be. Like I said, The Legend of Zelda is a great game, but like, it's clear that there's been a shift in design elements, a shift in what gamers get out of games from back then to now. Because if that existed today, people would immediately look up a walkthrough. Like, because how else would you solve that kind of puzzle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we're basically going to discuss implications of that. I have a few notes here about other games that came to mind when thinking about this topic. Do you have anything to add to it if I didn't like fully expand on it like you think I should?
Well, that's a good point, because like I when I think way back, and I'm glad you clarified that, because I was thinking like Ocarina of Time, and I want to talk about that later too. But you're right, absolutely. Like, there's a lot of things that's a good example, original Legend of Zelda, that aren't intuitive. But if you look at that game, that's part of the design, right? Is just to explore. Like, that's the premise of the game, is go and explore and stuff. But yeah. I think you're right that it wouldn't have been as readily accepted as it would be today, or vice versa. It wouldn't be accepted today like it was back then. I think of other games like Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, which has this like super convoluted solution where you go to this wall in the corner of the map and you crouch down for 10 seconds and then a tornado comes, but you have to be carrying it's this crazy elaborate what the heck moment that you have no idea how to do it unless you just do it. Yeah. And
I think like a character says, go to the far east and crouch.
Yeah.
Look down to the west. I don't know.
it's like you could figure it out, but it's really, really complicated. And
you could figure it out, but you won't.
And you won't. But you're right. Like, the point being, today, like, I feel like that stuff wouldn't fly.
Yeah, definitely.
Which, I guess, why is kind of the question, right? Why do you think that is?
I can't tell if it's the gamer that has changed or if it's the game that has changed, because, you know, like I said, people would probably resort immediately to a walkthrough. So the first thing I think is, have people changed so that they're more likely to look up an answer? But then I think a little bit more, you know, The Legend of Zelda, if your friend figured something out, you'd probably bug them and ask them what the solution was. Because like I said, or I didn't say this actually, but in case you weren't aware, the internet wasn't what it was today back then. There was no game facts. So, if your friend figured something out, you'd probably bug them all day trying to figure it out as well. You wouldn't say, no, don't tell me, I can figure it out myself. Do you think that's true?
Oh, yeah. Oh, when I think about, especially like 90s and N64 era, which is kind of where my mind was, everything was word of mouth. Like, there was no, you know, hey, did you read about this online? It's, hey, did you figure this out yet? Did you play this part of that game yet? And it was all just spread by word of mouth, which I find really fascinating, because you're right, today that just doesn't happen. Those same conversations happen, but it's like, hey, check out this YouTube video. Yeah.
Yeah. I looked up a walkthrough, and the dude has an annoying voice.
Well, yeah. and obviously there were like strategy guides.
Yeah.
You know, which I guess is kind of the same thing back then, like in a different format. But for some reason it's different. Like the attitude and the way that things are viewed today are different.
I think that's an interesting thing you brought up, strategy guides, because when I think of like original Legend of Zelda 1987, I don't really feel like strategy guides were really a thing back then. Gaming was still, you know, barely adolescent.
Yeah, and I don't know for sure, but I think so too, that they probably weren't as mainstream.
Yeah, and N64 era with Ocarina of Time, they're probably, I would expect there to be strategy guides for that. But even now, I look at strategy guides and I think, do people buy these? We have the internet now, you know?
Yeah, nowadays it's funny because they really are pretty much, you don't need them at all.
Yeah,
I had a friend that had a strategy guide for Skyward Sword, and I was like, why do you have this? And I guess he got it for some like
Sword.
Well, yeah. Why would you play? That should have been the actual question. Why would you play Sky? Full disclosure, I really like that game. I beat it. I beat it cool. With that very walkthrough. Like I made fun of him for having it, and then I used it to beat the game. But
I have no problems with Skyward Sword. Disclaimer.
I don't at all. But I did think it was funny that he had a strategy guide. I think he got it through some, you know, it was like a bundle thing where you get collector's edition something. But point being, yeah, today, why? Why would you even have a strategy guide? There's no point.
Yeah. Ugh. Should I go to my next topic, or
I forget, what were we saying just before that?
Before strategy guides. Where were we? We were talking about how a game like that couldn't exist today because people would immediately resort to walkthroughs.
Yeah.
Asking if the gamer has changed or if the game itself has changed.
Right. What do you think?
I do think the game has changed, because it's no surprise, it's no doubt that game design has become a mainstream thing right now. The fact that Mario Maker as a game was ever made, the fact that shows like yours and mine exist and people watch them, you know, that's a thing.
Yeah.
So I think people are more interested in game design, and I think they have been for a little while, but I think people's interest in game design has driven them to create something that they expect players to figure out instead of really excavate every nook and cranny. Because, like, also think of like a point-and-click adventure game. This isn't one of my topics, I only just thought of this now. But like a point-and-click adventure game where it doesn't have a clear solution, sometimes you find yourself doing the whole try everything with everything technique.
Yeah, oh yeah.
If you don't have a walkthrough.
Yeah, that's like the go-to thing in a point-and-click game. Just go through your inventory, click everything with everything.
Yeah. Click, walk. Okay. Click, talk. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. The games have changed, but I wonder if it's because the gamers... Like, I wonder if that's a byproduct because the gamers have changed, or if it's the gamers have changed because the games have changed. I don't know, or is it a bird and the egg situation?
It's hard to say because we also can't necessarily generalize a huge group of people.
Yeah.
You know, every gamer is different. Because, let me see that. Oh, like we've gotten to a point where I want to talk about bullet point number 4 on my sheet, but we're not yet past bullet point number 3.
We can go out of order. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm just impressed you have like bullet points.
I wanted to be prepared. I wanted to make a good statement. I got a little paper here. You can hear it flapping. Okay.
Just one other thing that I thought was interesting because
yeah.
I'm especially thinking about that N64 era because that was, for me, that was like growing up as this was rising, right?
Yeah.
A big one I think of is Super Mario 64, and this is kind of related to Ocarina of Time as well, just because similar. And so there's obviously secrets, and there's obviously hints to those secrets. Like one in particular that I think of because I experienced this firsthand of hearing about it through word of mouth and then finding it was like the metal cap in Mario 64, right? Mm-hmm. There's green boxes in the game that are translucent, and so it's like, ooh, I can't get that yet, but I want that. And you don't know where it is, and so you have to explore and find it. And I heard about it, and someone said, you know, hey, like I heard something about in Mario 64 about this metal cap. And you go, oh, that makes sense because like I've seen switches underwater. Maybe that's something that makes you heavy and then you can hit those switches. And like you try and figure it out on your own and you're like, okay, that makes sense. That must be in the game. And then you go and find it. And then when you find it, it's like, yes, here it is. Oh, what a great find. And you feel, you know, amazing and accomplished. But like, what would that be today? It would be, oh, I found that. I've heard about this online. Oh, I found out how to find it. Now I did it. And it's not nearly as satisfying. You
know, I heard you can play as Luigi in Super Mario 64.
Right, exactly. That's the funny thing is the metal cap thing was true, but yeah, you also hear all these things that aren't true, right?
Yeah, that makes me wonder if that kind of rumor could have existed. Like, oh, you can play as Sonic and Tails and Toad in Super Smash Bros. Melee. Could that exist if the internet were as big as it is now back then?
Yeah, and I know the internet was a thing because that's where I read about some of these.
Oh yeah,
right?
like you'd see these pictures too.
Yeah, and
clearly
Smash Bros was a big one because there were all these things about if you beat the game on very hard with one life and never continue, you can unlock Bowser.
You know, Giga Bowser.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so that's a good point because it was both sides. There were the real things that you actually found and were accomplished, and then there's also the false rumors, which all fall under the canopy of word of mouth. They're all things that you heard from friends, or in that case, it really was reading about them online as well. But they were all user submitted or things that real people had said, whether they're true or not.
Yeah, word of mouth is funny because it goes that idea of. Yeah, my dad works at Nintendo, and I have a 4DS, but I can't show you because then he'd get fired.
That's so true.
I knew people like that, and I hate them.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's interesting that we've discussed, 4 different things that weren't on my list of bullet points, and we've still only touched 2. And the first one is my introducing myself.
What was number 4? Because you, mentioned it.
I wanted to talk about Portal, actually.
Oh, okay.
Have you played Portal? I expect you would.
Yeah.
Portal is a masterpiece. Mm-hmm. I don't want to dwell on that, but if you haven't played Portal, dang, because Portal's a masterpiece. Portal came out in 2007, so the internet was a thing. It wasn't quite as big as it is right now, I think, but you could have probably looked up a walkthrough for it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I remember the first time I played Portal, I was with my friend, and the whole time, we were like, we have to figure this out ourselves. We cannot look up a walkthrough.
Yeah.
We were so committed to not using a walkthrough. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering what it is about Portal that drove me to not look up the answers. Why did I feel like, oh, I can figure this out myself? Because, I'll be honest, there are times when I'm playing a game and I'm just like, okay, I don't even care, just let me find a walkthrough. But what about Portal? Is it the fact that Portal is such a masterpiece? But if it was... what about Portal made me realize as a child subconsciously that it was such a masterpiece,
Yeah, it is interesting because I'm pretty sure I did it all on my own as well. And maybe it's just well designed. Everything's laid out well, so you kind of know your path, or at least you figure it out eventually, so you're never frustrated and quit. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could probably say the same thing about the Half-Life games, right? How they're designed well enough that there's a linear path, but it doesn't look that way. It looks like a real world, but your path is pretty clear. You find it eventually.
Part of me thinks that it is the linearity, because I look at, like, Legend of Zelda, technically it's an open world game, right?
I mean, yeah.
But when you look at Portal is instantiated. Portal has levels. It's like, this is a level, this is test chamber 9. You know,
Yeah, exactly. It's even more than just, like, here's your linear path. It's very numbered and...
Yeah, everything you can do to figure this out is right here in front of you. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Legend of Zelda, it's like, okay, go all the way across the map.
Yeah.
And then you need a bomb.
And yeah, I was going to say, you might not have the item. Exactly. Yeah,
but in Portal, you always have it. So that might have something to do with it.
Yeah. Well, and you don't change, right? Once you have the portal gun, it's like, that's your tools. Now make it work.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good idea of the player growth instead of character growth.
Right. Because Zelda, like, you continually gain an arsenal.
You get like 1 million health things.
Plus just like different items that could be used for different things.
Yeah.
I found that I replayed Ocarina recently, and I found that it's like, dang it, man! Like I knew I needed to go here, but I forgot I didn't have this yet. Now I have to go back and do all that. And it's like, man, like that. I feel like that'd be frustrating as a kid. And yet, here's another thing that's weird: is why is like I'm okay with that when I was a kid, but now I'm like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
Is it like this weird, like, I love having an adventure as a kid, and now I'm like a grumpy old man, and I don't have time for an adventure, and so I just want to get going where I'm going? Because I found that with myself. I play games today where I can just dive right in. I don't want to jump into this 10-minute cutscene long, this kind of like story. Like, I just want to play, I just want to play Shovel Knight or fill in the blank. Like, I just want to dive in. And is that a change in me? Is that normal? Is that a lot of people? Is that because of the internet? I'm asking a lot of questions. I don't know.
I do think that is a change in you, and it goes back to what we said earlier. Have games changed, or has the gamer changed?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that played Legend of Zelda, I would imagine, were children who are now a lot older and now have jobs and college and don't have time for games. So when they play games, they want to figure it out, and they don't have time to excavate every nook and cranny. They don't have time to do everything with everything in that point-and-click adventure game.
Yeah. Well, it's like, especially, specifically what I was thinking of is like finding the hookshot in Ocarina. Is there something that tells you, hey, go to the graveyard to find the hookshot? Because if there's not, like, that sucks. It doesn't tell you. There probably is, but even so, then you have to, like, pull open every grave, and then there's a lot of trial and error and exploration that without a walkthrough or internet or things, it's like, I was fine with it as a kid, but I feel like if that were me today, I'd be like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah. As a kid, it's like, okay, school's almost over, I can go home and look for the hookshot for 8 hours, and then go to sleep, and then go to school, and then look for the hookshot. It's just funny because
it's so true, though. Like, that really is, like... escaping life into this game was satisfaction enough,
Yeah.
It's weird.
So is it the internet that's changed us, or have we changed? Or has the internet changed us? Or really we made the internet because we changed?
It's starting to make my head hurt.
I was trying to think of like other ways that I could use the word. I was going to be like, man, my clothes are really, I want to change. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to
Have I found a change of internet to wear?
I'm going to change into some new internet.
It makes a good point though, right? Because like I just said, I played Skyward Sword with a walkthrough, and I felt like I wouldn't have done all the things that it wanted me to do if I didn't have that strategy guide.
I think that's really interesting, because Skyward Sword is it is the one that everyone talks poorly about. Mm-hmm. And most people cite the controls because motion controls, but like Like, what if it was designed similarly to an older Zelda game, which just, as we've kind of said, doesn't really work when you can just walk through everything, and people don't like it for that reason as well.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you anything. The point is to find it yourself. And the thing with Skyward Sword, I think a lot of people didn't like, is there was a lot of backtracking. There's a lot of going through the same areas over and over again.
Metroid?
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, it's obviously not the first game to do that.
Well,
but I didn't mind it because I had a strategy guide.
Yeah, but another thing was that, like, what I was thinking was, like, people love Metroid for that very reason.
Yeah,
when I know that people dislike Other M mostly because, like, of the story, but I think I heard somewhere that people didn't like the gameplay as well, but, like, that's, like, the only Metroid game that people really don't like, you know?
Yeah.
Next to Blast Ball. We're not going to talk about
I was going to say, and that's not even out yet. Yeah.
We're not going to talk about Blast Ball.
No, move on.
Okay, but yeah, like, Metroid is a game, like, people want another Metroid Prime, but Metroid Prime is very much in that vein of figuring everything out yourself. Do you think if they made a Metroid Prime 4, do you think people would play it true to the idea of don't look up a walkthrough or don't use a strategy guide, or do you think they would, try to would they figure it out on their own or not?
I don't think they would, and that's the thing is, I wonder if just we've changed that way permanently. I don't know if we can reverse that now. Like, even a modern game that's really straightforward, like Mario 3D World, if I couldn't find a green star and I would look, 3 or 4 times in a level, I would give up and look it up.
That's definitely true. That's something I hadn't thought of, which is weird because it perfectly epitomizes the whole point that I'm trying to present here.
Right. Like, is it because I could, and so I just did? Like, was I really that frustrated that I'd given up all hope, or did I know all along this is an option, so I can just do that? It's an easy way out. I'm
scared that we're not going to have a clear conclusion to this. I'm scared that we're going to get to the end of this and we're just going to be like, so, what have we found out? Well, it's interesting, but we don't have an answer. We don't know.
And that's what's with internet rising and changing games.
That's what's with the immediacy of information as a result of the internet.
Yeah, man. I would like to think so. I mean, I don't know. The immediacy, that's a tongue twister. The immediacy of information is not going to go away, right?
Of course not.
So how do we change ourselves to not rely on that?
If this were a movie, then right after you said the immediacy of information is not going to go away, like, everything would have shut off.
Yeah, that's when the lights would go out and a thunderstorm would start. Yeah.
And then iRobot. All right. It's the first one that I could think of. Yeah, I do agree. Like, we're not, clearly this library of information that we call the internet is here to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And games have changed as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Ta-da!
Well, my point was, how do we combat that? Do we just make a conscious effort ourselves to try and stay away from it and finish it on our own?
I think this is a good segue into my next point, or my point that I skipped.
Please do.
And that was the first thing I think of when trying to combat something is embracing of it, because, like, for example, if I had a crappy camera and I didn't have good resources to make a high quality show, what would I do? I'd make a horror film, because horror films are great when everything is of low quality. That adds to the scariness. It sounds funny, but it's true, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at Slender. I think that Slender Man, have you seen, like, the tapes of that? Not the game, but the tapes of that?
No, but I think of, like, Blair Witch Project, same thing, right?
Yeah. Like, it's all low quality, and that, like, adds to it, and stuff like that. But my point is, the first thing I think of is embracing the issues in front of me instead of trying to combat them. I should embrace it and try to see what I can do with it.
Yeah.
But then I was reminded of this game that my friend told me about. This was Simna again. He told me about this game that I could not find when researching for this exact podcast, so I cannot give you guys the name of it. But that might have something to do with... Wait, I was trying to segue and it didn't work out. I'm sorry. Okay, game that... Okay, there was a game, I think it was French. But it was like this PC game, and you need to research to figure it out. And it's not like, oh, when did the Mongols rule China? Google it. It's not like that. Mm-hmm. It's like, there's a story in the game, and you have to Google, not the answers to the story, but, or not I don't even think it was Google. This was like before the internet was that big, but like, you had to find the answers out externally, not through the game. You had to sign up your phone for something, and they'll give you a call with the clue. And it was like this not survival horror, like a weird Clue. It was Clue.
Right.
It's weird. Here are your clues. Figure stuff out. And it's pretty clear that didn't do well, considering 1, you listening at home probably didn't know about this game before I said it, and 2, I could not remember the name of it, or could find it when, like, I googled every, like, variant of what I just said up to see if I could find the name of it. It was not successful enough for people to even know about it.
That's funny. I can think of a game that did that, and it was successful though, and it actually blew my mind when I saw it, because I was like, this is so cool that it wants you to go outside of the game. It was Fez. Did you ever play Fez?
I started Fez, and I did not get very far.
I didn't beat it, but one of the rooms had a QR code on the wall. Uh-huh. And if you scanned the QR code with your iPhone, it gave you a code to put in with your, it was like the trigger. So it was like left trigger, right trigger, left trigger. And then if you do that, it gives you one of the cue pieces. And I thought, that's awesome. Like, so cool. It wants you to use other things and go and search it online. And it worked well in that instance.
Uh-huh.
But that's very rare and few and far between, right?
Well, I mean, the first thing I think of is of my friend who very recently got an iPhone. He had had a flip phone until now.
Right.
So he's a little excluded there.
Well, yeah. That's what I thought is like, what if you don't have a way to look that up? Or if you've never seen that before and you don't know what that is?
Yeah, because I remember there was a time when I saw QR codes, but I didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
But then I guess the second thing I think of is that's sort of not external. Sort of. Because a lot of the things we're talking about is like looking up the answer. And in this case, it's like the game is saying, look up the answer. There's a difference between the game not presenting information and the game presenting information to look up online, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking because there were other games too that I feel like there are other games that do that, especially like in the point and click genre. I feel like that's fairly common, right? Is go and figure this out. They're notorious for not telling you anything, right?
Yeah.
And they want you to just explore it and figure it on your own.
Yeah. And that's where the charm of a point and click comes from.
Right. Because once you know it and once you figure it out, which is also true of most puzzle games, the fun isn't there anymore because you know what to do.
Yeah.
Which I feel like, using a walkthrough or something for those defeats the purpose,
What's with cheating? Link in description. I told you I'd say it.
Shameless self-promotion.
I mean, it's entirely related to that video.
Yeah.
And then it's almost word for word what you said.
Yeah. Well, it's true. People, that would defeat the purpose.
It defeats the... Well, I mean, it also depends on the game. Sometimes the objective is do this, and if you know that you need to do that, then there's no fun to be had. But sometimes it's do this really convoluted and hard thing to execute, and even not necessarily hard to do, but kind of like what we talked about in the Mario Maker video. If you know the answer to the puzzle, it still has to be fun to complete. A fun puzzle isn't hard twice. Link in the description.
Yeah. Link in the description. Yeah, a boring puzzle isn't fun twice.
I thought you were going to expand on that, so I was waiting, and then apparently we didn't.
I'm just letting it resonate,
This is my awkward pause for this episode.
I went and I saw that you put on your banner now the awkward pauses as part of what you offer on your channel.
That's been there a little while.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Awkward pauses. Like analysis, game design, checking it out, and awkward pauses.
Yes. Analysis, discussion, awkward pauses.
Yep. Okay, so back to information being readily available.
Immediacy of information.
It's changed games. What else? Where do we go from here? How do we deal with that?
Well, I guess the first back to what we were saying before. This whole idea of combating this idea, and the first thing I said was embracing it, which we used a few examples. The first game I mentioned, which clearly failed.
Yeah.
Because no one knows it. I mean, in theory, it seems like it'd be a really interesting idea, but it did not do well, and part of me feels like it wouldn't do well now because people could easily just look up a walkthrough.
Mm-hmm.
So it can't necessarily be an expectation. One thing that are you familiar with a game called, I think, Goddess or Goddess?
No.
Wait, is that even the right game? Wow, this isn't on my bullet points. I really just thought of this right now and I was reminded of it. There was some game where, like, it was this huge cube, and people all over the world could just tap away at the cube trying to break blocks off.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'll keep explaining for people who don't know.
The Peter Molyneux game.
Yeah. And people had no idea what this was. No one knew what was in the center of it. And once you got to the center, people, the person who got to the center was allowed to, like, work on a game with the creator or something.
Yeah.
And I guess this is only a little related, but to some extent, like, there's obviously no walkthrough for this giant cube thing. No one can look up what's in there.
Yeah.
So people had, like, theories.
Yeah.
So, but, like, that can't could that exist today, where people have, like this idea, or these theories, oh, maybe this is what it is? Because that happens a lot with, like, stories. People have interpretations of how the ending of Bloodborne is and what the ending of Bloodborne means. But can we have an interpretation about the game itself? Oh, what's in the middle of the cube? Oh, can you play as Luigi in Mario 64?
Well, I think that's a good start, right? Things like that, where the whole point of that game, the gameplay itself is pretty dull, actually, but the whole point is the mystery. That's the draw, right? What I was going to ask, and this is kind of related, was, are we seeing some of those games come up now, where people are making games where the whole point or the way to experience it best is with no information, with nothing helping you, with not even talking to your friends about it? And one I think of that comes to mind is Undertale, which I think I was talking to you briefly about. But anything that anybody has ever said about Undertale, other than, hey, it's great, you should go play it, is don't look up stuff about it. You know?
Yeah.
Play it completely blind. Do not research it before playing. Just experience it firsthand. Because that's how you're going to get the best experience with it. Otherwise, you're going to ruin things for yourself. And that's really interesting to me, because that's not like something the game tells you. The game's not like, hey, don't look things up, it'll ruin the game for you. That's just what people are interpreting it and telling you themselves. And so it's interesting. It's like we're seeing a rise in people wanting to get back to that feeling, right? Of discovering things for yourself.
I think the same can be said about the game that I briefly spoke to you about immediately after you told me that about Undertale, which is the Beginner's Guide.
Yeah.
Where, honestly, if you know anything about the Beginner's Guide, it's already spoiled, sort of. A little bit, kind of. Maybe.
Yeah.
Sort of. Kind of, with an asterisk.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Do people have this desire to go back to this ideal of don't spoil it? Because I guess it depends on the game. Sometimes it might be a little bit different too, because in Undertale it's like, don't spoil the game. But for a thing like, if The Legend of Zelda were released today, it'd be a matter of don't spoil that part of the game. How to solve this one puzzle in the game, this instance.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of a different idea. And does that make it different intrinsically as about the topic we're talking about, or is that really the same?
Well, because I think spoilers are also obviously a thing that's risen with the internet, and there's always people that want to avoid spoilers, and that's why it's become kind of like a joke and meme in itself of like, spoiler alert. But I think that's inherent from people that want to get back to that ideal of playing a game without any interference or things that can lead us to something that we should have figured out on our own. When you mentioned Portal, that was a good example, because Portal is very much a puzzle game that once you figure out the puzzle, well, okay, that ruined the fun of the game for you, right? And so that's a good example. And like you said, that's not every game. But I don't know. Is there a game that you should research before you play, or is that true of most games that it's better experienced without any previous knowledge? I don't know.
I didn't want to go from the beginner's guide to the Stanley Parable, but this reminded me of the Stanley Parable.
Yeah,
suddenly
it's a good example.
If you talk about the Stanley, every time I show someone the Stanley Parable, I'm like, don't ask questions.
Yeah.
And even after they've started playing, I'm like, don't ask questions. And people say stuff like, is it possible to do this? And honestly, I don't even know. I haven't even looked up the answers. I feel like, I have looked up the answers to the Stanley Parable after I started playing it, just to see all the different endings there are, but I feel like even all those lists of endings that we have aren't correct. I still feel like I've discovered more stuff after looking those up.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
That's what people have said about Undertale. We still have not found all the secrets.
It seems weird because I feel like isn't it easy to hack a game now and just look in the coding?
You know, that's another thing I've seen the rise of, and that's even more recent than just the internet. I've seen that only in the last few years, where I get really mad, actually, when people find out secrets by hacking and leaking. That frustrates me. I saw that with Rebirth, Binding of Isaac Rebirth, with The Lost, right? So The Lost was supposed to be this super secret hidden character. You had to do this incredibly intricate series of events to unlock it, but there were little hints and codes hidden within the game. You had to get a piece of paper and die, and then it would give you a section of the picture, and once you had all of the pieces of the picture, it told you what to do. It was really complex, right? And then you could unlock The Lost, which is this super secret hard character. But nope, day 2 after release, people are like, hey, here's The Lost. I found it in the code. You can unlock it by doing this. So, there you go.
I think that's really interesting because you say it's a recent thing, and it, for the most part, it is. But I'm thinking of my old days of Pokemon, because ever since the first generation, there's been at least one hidden Pokemon in the game that you pretty much can never get.
Hey, you just push the truck, man. You'll get Mew.
Yeah, you push the truck. Imagine that rumor if the internet were a thing. But there's Mew, and there's Celebi, Jirachi, and Deoxys, and all that. And I remember learning about the 3 hidden legendaries in Generation 4. That's 2006, might I add. Mm-hmm. Generation 4 had 3 hidden legendaries that you couldn't get at all unless you get it from a special event, but we found out information about them shortly after the game's release, and it was a huge deal. And here I was thinking, I'm the coolest kid on the schoolyard because I know these Pokemon exist, and other people don't. So the internet has spoiled a lot of weird things for us, and especially recently. I remember when Generation 6 came out, people already immediately hacked into it and found a bunch of stuff, and it's okay, great. And remember when Roy and Ryu were leaked for Smash?
Yeah.
That was a bummer.
That stuff really frustrates me. It really does, because those are the times when I hate the internet. It's come on, we can't have anything nice anymore because of things like that.
Yeah.
Because that's a real negative side to it. The whole finding information and helping yourself through a game, that's one thing, because that's most of the time you deciding to do that, right?
Yeah.
But leaks and spoilers, that's just, sometimes those are just thrust upon you and you don't want them.
Yeah, you can't even avoid them.
And that's super frustrating.
And sometimes you can't help it. You're oh, I don't want to know, but I really gotta know. And then you look it up and you're now I'm disappointed.
Yep. Pokemon was a funny example because that made me think of Missing No, which at least as far as I think, that was not hey, I found this on the internet, check out what you can do. I'm pretty sure that was people just finding that out.
That was totally word of mouth.
Word of mouth, and that was a glitch. That's not Nintendo intentioned, right? That was a glitch. And so that's funny too, because we were saying earlier, how could you ever figure that out without the internet? And yet things like that happen just from people experimenting and doing weird things even without the internet. So
yeah, talk to the old man and have him show you how to use a Pokeball, and then fly all the way to here, and then go up and down the water, and blah, blah, blah.
It seems like something that could happen by accident, right? And it's really interesting because I think to an extent we do underestimate what gamers could do, because to go all the way back to like Simon's Quest, obviously someone probably did it accidentally or, figured it out and tried it, and then it worked, and then that spreads. But there's a different attitude about it today that's like, that's stupid. That doesn't teach you how to do that, so it's bad design.
That's really neat to think.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Do you know how long we're at? Because I have one more point, and I'm afraid that I'm not going to touch on it.
I mean, you can go ahead. We're at 46 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so I didn't even I grabbed the paper, and then I just
I was like, yeah, that was not page turn. That was
the wind. The wind. I swear. All right. And maybe I'm not qualified to talk about this, because I'm going to be honest with my audience. I haven't played Dark Souls.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember...
that's a good example.
There was an episode of Deadlocked on Game Theory.
Yes, the Dark
where
Souls.
Where they asked, is Dark Souls a bad game? And I was like, that's a weird question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the points was that there is a near impossible to find item that where you have to go do this, and you gotta walk up a thing and go over here and go into the nest, and the bird takes you to the place, and it seems really convoluted. I don't know if that item was essential for beating the game or not, and I think that has a lot to do with everything we're saying. I think if something isn't clear to the audience or isn't clear to the player, but isn't required to beat the game, then it's probably not as big a deal.
Yeah, that's a good distinction. Secrets versus necessary.
Yeah. So I don't know if this item in Dark Souls was necessary, but the first thing I think is did designers intend for this to be a thing? Gaming is very social now. Look at us. We're doing a podcast on it right now.
Yeah.
And and remember, Dark Souls also has those notes you can put on the ground.
Yeah.
So to some extent, it wouldn't even necessarily be a problem in Dark Souls, because I'm sure there are a bunch of notes that are go over here, walk up the tree.
Yeah.
But how would the first person find it?
Yeah.
Is another good question.
That's a really good example, because Dark Souls is a game I have played it, so you'll get both of our sides of it.
Nice. I don't have a side. I just brought it up.
I have played it, and there is a lot in that game that's really convoluted. Worse than crouch at this wall and a tornado will take you away. It's hidden walls that you have to attack that will disappear once you attack them. So you're just going to run around attacking every wall you can? That's crazy. The thing you described was, that's super weird. You had to go to this bird's nest, crouch in it for 20 seconds, longer than most people, because you go to the nest and then it'll tell you the option, oh, hey, press A to crouch. So you think, that's weird, I'll crouch. But that's longer than most people would sit there crouching. They would say, oh, okay, that's fun for 5 seconds, and then leave. So it's this little hidden thing, and getting to the bird's nest is really complicated.
That too.
It's not on the path. You have to jump off broken sections of the building. I will say the item they were talking about in that game theory is not necessary, but it makes the game a lot easier. It kind of helps you go through water faster. So it's nice, but it's not necessary. So in that case, it's kind of a neat little Easter egg, right, in that point, which is kind of a pun because you pretend to be a bird egg. But that's a really good example, because I beat Dark Souls with a walkthrough, and there were a lot of instances where I thought I would have never, ever figured that out without this help. But you're right about them placing notes, and I played it on my Xbox offline. I didn't have Xbox Live, so I never saw the notes. So that game is meant to be played online. That's why, Demon Souls was a PS3 exclusive, because At the time, PlayStation had free online. Like, it's a game that was meant to be played online. You're meant to have friends help you fight the bosses, etc. So it makes sense in that context. If you play Dark Souls not online, it's a lot harder and a lot harder to figure out where to go and what to do. So that's like a perfect example, because I don't think I could have beaten it without the internet. And
to some extent, even if you had Xbox Live and used it with that, you'd still be leaning on the internet.
Well, that's why I said that. I was offline on the Xbox, but I used the internet to help me, or I could have connected to the internet through my Xbox and helped me through the game.
It's always coming right back to the internet.
Yeah,
Games,
yeah. But you made a really good point that did they intend it that way? And I think they did. Like, the developers, now this is a game new. This is a new game today where they know that the internet can be used and will be used, so they used it to their advantage. That's actually a really good point. Because you brought that up earlier.
I'm counting the number of times you said that's actually a really good point.
That is actually a really good point that you bring that up, because I've been saying that too much.
Should I count it if you were talking about the fact that I was talking about you were saying that so many times?
You know what? That's a good point. We should move on. So I love the game. Dark Souls became one of my favorite games the year I played it. But wow, that's, I never really thought of it that way, but that's true. That
just like blow your mind?
That's a good example of using the internet to their advantage. We were talking about that earlier, and are there games that are doing that? That's a good example.
I guess the only question I have is then, how does the first person find it? Because hacking is not a good way. Even for the first person to find it through hacking sucks. If one person finds it and then it spreads around with the notes in-game in Dark Souls, that sounds nice. But if one person hacks and finds it and then starts spreading it around, that seems not cool to me.
Well, that's a thought I had looking at the walkthrough. How did the first person find this to put this in the walkthrough? I remember thinking that distinctly. Like, how would you ever know to find this? So that's just really funny.
Maybe the person got home from school and then looked for the thing for 8 hours and then went to bed and then went back to school.
Well, yeah, to bring it full circle, right? It's like the people that when you're a kid and you go and explore the world, maybe this new generation of kids played Dark Souls for 10 hours and put it all online. It's so crazy. Just the world has changed so much.
The world has changed. People, if I'm scaring you, I'm sorry. It's Lord of the Rings, right? It's Lord of the Rings. I don't want to scare anybody.
I mean, this isn't like really a conclusion, but it just is really interesting to me because, wow, it really has changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's changed the way we look at games, the way we play them, and what we rely on.
Yeah. Yeah.
What an end. Yeah. What an end, man.
Everything you said.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we were concluding.
Ditto. I mean, we don't have to conclude. I'm just saying.
I mean, I don't have any other points, but I would. What a weird ending.
It is like
we just Shyamalan'd that.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this, but this is the M. Night Shyamalan of snoCasts.
Well, I'm super glad that I got to be a part of the M. Night Shyamalan of snoCast.
Oh, absolutely. No, it was a blast. Thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
You're welcome for being on.
Tell us what you guys think. That's I guess how we could conclude. Like, give us your thoughts. Put it in the comments.
I want a 5-paragraph essay on my desk Saturday morning.
Yes. Caspasaurus, get on it. He's like the king of really long comments. Give me a 5-paragraph, your thoughts.
I will read each word and pronounce them all wrong in my head as I read.
That's weird.
It's totally weird.
Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. This has been a blast for me to talk about. It really was. Like, I know it sounds like I'm just saying that, but seriously, like, this was really interesting for me to think on and talk about.
Yeah.
So thanks for bringing it up, CJ.
I'm glad that I brought it up.
Yeah.
I like that my mind is a little bit better than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Whatever that means.
You got a good mind.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm assuming we're probably on the end slate at this point, but hey, go check out CJ's videos.
That's me, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's What's with Games. Go check it out.
Yeah.
You can watch the previous snoCast here as well. As always, you can put topic ideas in the comments below. future topics, we might just talk about them. So tell me something you'd like to see after your big essay about the internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, thank you guys for listening. I hope you like the new format. Oh, that was the other thing I told you to tell me in the comments. So this is like, every comment needs to be super long on this. That 1, tell me if you like the new format or if you prefer the video. 2, tell me what you think about the internet and games. And 3, tell me future topic ideas.
5-paragraph essay on each.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's...
What?
That's a lot.
It is. But I mean, we pulled our effort. We brought it up.
we did our part. Now it's time for you to do yours.
I totally did not expect that to sound as mean as it did. And then my mouth opened, and then just everything went downhill.
No, it was just so funny. Like, we did our part. Come on, audience. It's time for you to start pulling your weight. Check out the Lay's
bags over here.
Start pulling your weight, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we brought this up, and you guys are now supposed to put the notes about it in your Dark Souls full circle. All right.
You didn't think this would be like school, audience, but now we're making you write essays. So there you go. That's your homework. And we'll see you on the next snoCast. Oh, excuse me, man. Any final thoughts?
You should totally leave that burp in.
I was hoping it would be like covered, but that was a really bad burp. Okay.
You should like censor it and then censor when I say the word burp, including the one I did just right now, and they'll be like, "Whoa, did he just like cuss?"
Yeah,
and
did he leave? Wow, they keep mentioning the burp, and I'm gonna bleep that one too. And then, yep.
I really hope you do bleep that now.
Yeah, I probably won't. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
I did enough work for this snoCast. Okay, you know what?
Yeah, we pulled our work.
We've talked long enough. It's time. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, we've just been spitballing. All right, yeah, what he said.
Bye.
snoCast.